Hello friends, Tanya here for Trinity Stamps, and today we are going to make a Great Pumpkin wiper card. I have a doozy of a video for you today. It's a long one. I hope you have a beverage and a little time. We're going to start with some cardstock, 7 by 7 inches, and 2 more pieces that are between 3 and 4 inches wide and 7 inches long. And we're going to pull in our scoring tool, and we're going to score at 1 inch and 2 inches. Just on one side of each of these pieces of cardstock. Now these smaller pieces are going to be die cut. We're going to use a border die to die cut these, so the height doesn't matter as much. You just want to have it wide enough so that you're going to have pieces that will work out. Now you're going to pull out some kind of border die. I am using the Slimline Scenic borders, and we're going to use the grass die and the clouds die. We're going to have the grass on the bottom, or the green on the bottom, of course, because grass would be on the bottom, and we're going to have the gray on the top. And I'm just kind of lining these up so that they are covering about the amount of space that I want them to cover on this card in the end. So here I've trimmed them down, and I do have a little extra, and I trimmed off the scraps at about 3/4 of an inch. Now they had already been scored 1 inch and 2 inch, and that's perfect because we want this mechanism that I'm creating to have a 1 inch triangle, so to speak. Now I trim off the extra that folds out beyond the actual strip when it's in the triangle shape, and you can see that you're taking the corner and bringing that down so the edge meets the scored 1 inch line, and you're doing that on both sides. Again, trimming off the extra there, and we have 2 pieces, one for the top and one for the bottom. They're going to be longer than you need. Next, we're going to do some ink blending. I've got Villainous Potion, Uncharted Mariner, Rustic Wilderness, and Smoky Slate. Next, we'll pull out the Puffy Cloud Layers stencil. That's an oldie but a goodie. I love this thing. And we're going to use that to add some cloud stenciling to our cloud border die cut piece. I just want to make this very moody scene, and I'm really enjoying all of the ink blending on this card. We'll just use different parts of this stencil to create our stormy clouds for this night sky. And we'll just keep ink blending that. I'm trying to soften the edges, adding extra ink blending. And now we're going to move to the grass, and we're going to use the Rustic Wilderness to add some shading and dimension to this section. I had so much fun with this card. It is a labor of love. I think it took me about 2 hours to do all of the things. Now, to match the vision I had in my head, I needed to switch the color. I thought I wasn't going to need something as dark as black soot, but I did. The hickory smoke just didn't look quite right. So I'm adding the black soot along the edges because I want this to be, again, a night sky or a night scene. So I'm taking the black soot and I'm adding it to the clouds also. Then we're going to take out the blue section. Now I have the score lined part to the right. On the other pieces, they were on to the left. Just know that they need to be on opposite sides. It would work either way. I am taking Salvaged Patina, which I didn't show you originally, Uncharted Mariner, and Villainous Potion, and we'll end with the black soot on the top. And as you could see, I took my grass section and laid it down and to figure out how far down I would need to do my ink blending, so I knew where to start with the Salvaged Patina. And then for the top, I wanted to make sure that we got all of the colors showing in the gap between the two sections. And so I laid the cloud border section on top of that to figure out how far down I needed to ink blend. Now I took some clean water and I spattered that across this panel and I don't want it to warp, so I'm just going to let it air dry after I picked some of it off. Next, we're going to use some of the seasonal limited edition distress mica spray stains. This was Decayed, and now this one is Wicked Elixir. Now, mine was plugged. I'm shaking it really good. You want to make sure all of the mica is combined with the stain. So you shake it until there's no residue in the bottom. And yeah, I'm just going to take this needle and try to get this unplugged. It's still kind of plugged. It's a little better, but it's still kind of plugged. So I'm going to have to take and soak that in warm water. But in the meantime, I'm just going to take that mica spray stain that was coming out the top but not spraying out of the bottle and spattering it over my paper. And then I'm going to take the spray nozzle off and add some of the liquid to the top of a block. I'm going to spatter that on the cardstock. I didn't have quite enough, so I do it again. And I am adding just a little bit of water so I can make this spatter really easily with my paintbrush. And I actually love how this turned out. It took more work than if the spritzer had actually worked, but don't fear, if you have a clogged nozzle, you can still make it work. Next, I pulled out the moon layers and the man in the moon. So the moon layers stencil coordinates with the man in the moon cut and foil. We're going to stencil this with scattered straw, dried marigold, and tea dye. I know that sounds like an odd combination, but it actually turns into a really good moon, especially like a harvest moon to go behind or in the background of this scene. I'm not going to be very careful because I'm going to die cut this with the coordinating die in the man in the moon foil and cut. I'm lining this up with the etched line for the circle of the moon, and I'm adding the next layer with the dried marigold. I started with the scattered straw, and we're going to use tea dye on the last layer. And I'm very gentle with this. It's more of a dabbing motion than a rubbing because I don't want to disrupt or move around any of the detail pieces in the stencil. There's just one little arm that sticks out that would bend if you were too vigorous. Next, I'm going to take the Harvest Moon Distress Mica Spray Stain. I love these Distress Mica Spray Stains. You may have noticed that. I use them a lot. And I have to say that I love the new colors just as much as I loved the old colors. And I still have most of my old ones. They do go a long way. That's the die cut moon, and it turns out perfect. Next, we're taking some plain black cardstock and adding some Decayed spray, and then the mica spray stain, and this is the Iron Gate mica spray stain. And this is the Slimline Spooky Scene die set. I love this. This is going to add some amazing accents to our wiper card. And I have to tell you, this was totally inspired by Charlie Brown, The Great Pumpkin. It is such a cute scene. I still am so thrilled with the way this turned out. It's one of those times where your vision was the final product exceeds your vision. I love it. There's an owl in this. Oh, and this is the Crafty Glue Friend. Trinity Stamps now has their own glue, and it is a nice fine tip, and it is a wonderful glue. Fantastic. Works just as well as my Barely Art Precision Glue. However, and this is a struggle I've had for a long time, I am allergic to many things, and that glue is one of them. So you won't see me using it again. This is the vintage tin tile foiling plate. Gorgeous. And this will foil a piece big enough to use on a 5x7 card. It's fantastic. I love it. Look at that. It's just gorgeous. I did use the Spellbinder specialty paper here and some Aura foiling. This is the brand new Blending Buddy brush. I am really liking this quite a lot. I pulled out a couple of peachy orange, or well, a light orange and a darker orange ink pad. These are dye inks. And I'm blending them onto this cardstock, and you can see that the foil resists the blending, and it turns into this gorgeous, gorgeous panel that I'm going to use to make a pumpkin. Look at that. Oh, I'm in love with this. Oh, and then we're going to pull out the ripe pumpkin cut and foil. We're not going to use the foil part this time. There's only one plate that does the foiling. I'm going to use the large solid and then the detail piece, which you can use the positive and the negative for those. I'm only going to use the frame, not the fallout pieces. I have in my pile of assembled goodies a couple of pumpkins from the negative fallout pieces. However, we're just using that outline, which is stunning. And we're using some of these swirly little vines that come with the die. Just going to add some glue to the back of this, just in some strategic spots. It doesn't have to cover the entire piece. Each of these inner details just needs a little bit of glue on it, kind of midway, and that prevents them from pulling up. Just going to line that up so there's a nice even border around the entire pumpkin. And then we'll add a little bit of glue to the ends of the vines and lift the pumpkin and lay those right on top of the vines the way I would like to see them. And you can add those in a whole bunch of different ways. This would be really cute with some of the foiled leaves from last year. Next, we're taking this adorable Sheets and Giggles stamp set. I'm only using one of these ghosts, but if I'm stamping one, I'm stamping all of them. These ghosts are so cute. I love them. I'm only going to stamp this once before I do the Copic coloring, and then we'll come back and stamp them again to sharpen everything up. I'm using the T0, T1, and T2 to create these to color these ghosts, using the darkest one to add my lines for where the folds and shadows would be, and then just gradually going back with each lighter layer. These are such cute ghosts, and the darker gray you go, the more dramatic your ghosts look. I think these would be cute as a glow in the dark. Ooh, I might have to figure out how to do that. Here they are, all colored. I'm going to add them back into my MISTI. I have not moved my stamps, so now I can go back and stamp over them. Now I could have gone back with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink and then embossed over the top of them, but I decided to just stick with the Hero Arts Intense Black ink and keep stamping that. I think I stamped it an additional 3 times to make sure that their eyes were a nice bold black and that their outlines were crisp and lovely. These turned out fantastic. There are coordinating dies for every single part of that stamp set, including all of the sentiments. And here we have the coordinating dies for each of these images, and they cut out so cute. Next, we're going to take one of the sentiments from the stamp set. It says, "You're fabulous." I stamped that with the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and I'm going to add a little clear embossing powder and heat set that. I don't want my ink to smear, and I like the raised shininess that this adds when you do some heat embossing. We're going to add or use the coordinating die to die cut this also, and I think it's super convenient that I have this little die cut machine to use right on my desk. Look at this. This one's called Gourd-geous. I keep saying it. I love it. I am a big squash lover. I love how they look. I love how it tastes. I use it in all kinds of recipes. And this stamp set is just beautiful. Love it. I am only using the sentiment, "Hello, gorgeous," and that's enough on this stamp set, or excuse me, on this card. It's just perfect. I'm using some gold embossing powder on some blue cardstock after I've stamped it with some juicy embossing ink. And then we'll use the coordinating die to die cut this sentiment. Have I mentioned that I love that we have coordinating dies for our sentiments? Oh, now it's time to start assembling this. Now on the front pieces, we're going to do mountain fold, valley fold. And on the back piece, we're going to do valley fold, mountain fold. They need to be opposites in order for this to work. Just creasing the edges nicely. And then we'll take and put glue just on the back of the farthest, or the edge of the front panel pieces. Just going to adhere that well. Give it a little time to set, adding the glue to both of the pieces that are going to be our cross pieces. And then we're going to add our moon. Now when I die cut this, I was just a smidge off center, so I have a little sliver of white showing. Now I could have ink blended that and made that go away, but you know what? I can just hide it in my card. We're going to tuck this up underneath our cloud border and up against the fold crease line. Next, we're going to take those trees that we die cut, or one of them, the one that is right facing, and we're going to tuck that up as far as we can and get it to snug in around our other border. We don't want it to interfere with any of the function or the motion of the card. And we're going to just line that up with the left side of the left edge of the card and adhere that straight to the back part. This scene is coming together just beautifully. Oh, I'm so excited. It turned out so good. Just making sure that's all nicely snugged down. I'm laying the card as flat as I can and using my long bladed scissor to trim that extra off the bottom. That tree is sized to fit on a slimline, so it's just a little bigger than we need. Now we folded these down, and you can see here we've got that solid triangle facing up. And when we attach this, we're going to have the long edge of that triangle even with the edge of the grass border. We're only putting glue on the one triangle that's on the top, well, the upper one. And then for the one that we're putting on the top portion, so that this will flip down, we have the bar flipped. So it's got a panel. Let's see, we've got the little small triangle on the back side, and we have the long flipper on the front side. We're putting glue on the little triangle and lining the edge up for that on the mountain fold there. And then when you open it, the flipper will go down. So that's the change. On the one on the bottom, both the flipper and the adhered piece are on the same side. Here I had discovered that the edge of my little flipper was above the edge of the card, so I trimmed it off. These are just mechanisms. They don't need to be fancy, and you just whack away at them to make them work with your card. Now it's time to adhere the other side of the panels, the crossbars. Here I make sure that the grass, or I figure out where the glue needs to be so it's below the grass. And you can see that there's a little bit of the blue showing on the other end of the grass. No big deal. This tree is going to cover up all of that. And I'm sorry I have this slightly off out of screen, but we're just going to line this up so that the branches go up as high as they can, and making sure not to put glue on the branch that's extending out over the moon or over the open space, and lining that up with the right side of the card. Just going to add the heavy block there to let that set, and again trim off the extra tree trunk on the bottom. Look at that. we can see our mechanisms start to work. Now that flipper on the top is being a little goofy, and I figured out that it's actually that crease line in the middle of the triangle. Yeah, that was not playing well. So I take a piece of cardstock and I firm it up so that that crease line isn't going to fold or isn't going to bend. And then our little flipper, our little wiper mechanism works much better. And I am going to try to put this owl on the wiper. Now this all changes, but I thought it would be good to leave this in so you can use this method should you choose in the future and have a double wiper card if you want. Here I've got the owl. He's just a little, I took a little piece of tape and adhered him to the flipper or the wiper mechanism to see if I liked how it was working and to make sure that it was staying behind our cloud border. It wasn't sticking out past the edges of the card when it was folded up, and then it flipped down into a good spot. I'm still not completely happy with the way that owl is flipping down, but I decide to assemble the rest of the pieces so I can make a final determination on where that owl will land. We take our big pumpkin and I put that on our card, and next we're adding our little ghost on the green flipper. So I add a little glue to our ghost, and I want this to pop up from behind the pumpkin when you open the card. Just going to trim off the excess on the green wiper mechanism, and that's working fantastic, except the ghost and the owl are bumping into each other. Not really loving that. So I think I'm going to try to adjust the placement of the owl. Just peel him off the paper. Don't worry about dismantling your card. Sometimes you have to do that. Even people who make cards all the time. Yeah, making it lower so you could see his eyes did not work out, because then he really bumped into the ghost. Ultimately, I end up taking out that mechanism from the inside and moving the owl to a different placement. Oh well. Next, we're taking the You're Fabulous sentiment and adding that to the front of our ghost. And we're going to add our Hello Gourd-geous sentiment right at the base of that pumpkin. I'm taking a piece of coaster blank. Coaster blanks are just pulp board that you buy that don't have any decoration on them, and I got mine from Amazon. I'll have that linked in the description box below for those who ask. And I'm adding that strip behind our Hello Gourd-geous. You could just do layers of cardstock or a piece of dimensional foam. I'm adding a little scrap of that behind our owl, and he's going to sit next to our pumpkin right on our sentiment. And then I have to play with it for a little bit, opening and closing it several times. I think this is, I've said it many times already on this video. I am thrilled with the way this card turned out. I love it. It is so cute. And then we have some gravestones or headstones from the Slimline Spooky Scene dies. And there are two versions here. There's one with a cross on the top and one that's just a rounded top. And I'm tucking those in several spots. I had 5 of them. I didn't know how many I was going to use or where I was going to put them. So I was just playing around with them. I wanted some balance here, so we used the other one with the cross on this side. And we'll add another rounded one over here. And I decided that 4 isn't enough. We have to have an odd number. And so I grabbed that 5th one and I tuck that up next to the pumpkin and under our sentiment. And there we go. That's the entire card. I love all the shimmer and shine. I love all the layers. This is a fantastic card. You can write your message on the back and it'll fit in a 5x7 card. Envelope. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making this card. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do that now. Leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you, and all of the comments and the likes help this channel. If you're interested in any of the products that I use today, check that description box below. And until next time, here's a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.